Allow me to introduce myself.
I am the last sane sports fan.
I am a genius by trade.
I just knew too much. Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy? Possibly.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to The View from the Midwest. There's no real big topics out there today, so let's just pick around the sports world and see what we've got going on. Well, the Premier League season is over, so I don't know what I'm going to do with my weekends anymore. It's a sad day. I guess I could go outside. Oh, but it's so bright out there. I don't know if I like that. No, but in all seriousness, the Premier League season is over. It was a mediocre season overall compared to last year, which basically because Chelsea was on top from start to finish. I am not a Chelsea fan, but I also just don't like the fact that teams are in first place basically the entire year. There were teams that made charges up towards that spot, but they just never really seemed to have the kind of staying power to really stay up there. My personal team, Liverpool, they had a great run as they did last year after Christmas through about March, but then once the spring came, they really fell apart. It was just kind of an up and down season for a lot of teams. Arsenal, Manchester United, Tottenham, Everton. All of them saw themselves make a little bit of a run and then fall off and back and forth, and it was just kind of an odd season. And now it's wrapped up, and it's kind of the end of the major soccer season. Here in the United States, there's still quite a bit going on. There's MLS going on right now, and there's some interesting races in there. If you want to follow that, go ahead and check that out. MLS is improving quite a bit. Those of you who are soccer fans, I know there's a lot of snobs out there, especially even in the United States of all places, that are just completely against MLS. And it's weird because you have that mentality kind of here around St. Louis, not necessarily towards soccer, but towards a lot of sports, to where if it's not the highest level of professional sports, then it's not worth your time. And that is completely wrong. And this is slightly off topic, but if you live here in the St. Louis area and you are a soccer fan, you really should go check out St. Louis FC. Me and my wife just went to a game last night. I mean, the rain came pouring down. There was a lightning delay. But once the game came back, all of a sudden, like 3 or 4 goals were scored right then and there. The final was 3-3, and a lot of people don't like draws or ties, but it's the way the sport is, and I hope that they never change it, because I kind of, now that things have settled down and we've had lots of years to really look at it, I kind of like that, or I kind of don't like that hockey changed their thing. I did at the time, but really, if you think about it, is a shootout really the best way to decide things? But anyway, I've gotten off topic here. Go see a St. Louis FC game. There's plenty of games. If they make the playoffs, they'll be playing all the way through October, and then it'll be hockey season. So, I mean, there's a nice tie-in there. It's just kind of rolling over into each other, just because I'm not the biggest baseball fan in the world. So it's nice that a sport that I support will kind of tide me over until the next one. But go out and see St. Louis FC. I'll pick up my check now. Just kidding. I don't get paid for him. I don't get paid for anything. On to the next topic. Let's talk a little bit about the NBA. LeBron James is pretty much doing what LeBron James is going to do, which is carry his team to the NBA Finals. And it's kind of weird. You look at the juxtaposition between the NHL and the NBA. The individual games in both sports have been very good, very tightly contested, except for that one game with New York pretty much just taking Tampa Bay behind the woodshed. Other than that, everything's been fairly tightly contested. A lot of goals scored in some of these games, but then you've had triple overtimes, you've had double overtimes in the case of Chicago and Anaheim, in their last game. And But on the flip side, the NBA, the games themselves have been good. Well, I should say the Eastern Conference games have been reasonably good. Last night went to overtime. Atlanta battled back. They were down by quite a bit in the fourth quarter. They managed to battle back, take it to overtime, but LeBron James pulled Michael Jordan and said, even though I've been terrible from three-point range, I'm going to put up a three-pointer to win the game, and now we have a 3-0 series lead, as we do with the Golden State Warriors and the Houston Rockets. And one interesting little note about LeBron James, he has the second worst three-point percentage in the playoffs all time this year, just for one playoff run. He's shooting 16.1%. But that shows you what kind of player he is. He's shooting so terribly from beyond the arc, yet he's still willing to put up the game-winning three-point shot to take his team to one game away from an NBA Finals appearance. On the flip side, you've got Golden State and Houston. And really what's been disappointing about the NBA, as I said, the individual games have been okay to good. But the series, I really expect a lot more from both Houston and Atlanta, especially Houston. I thought they'd be able to really take it to Golden State, but they've just kind of disappeared. Now they've had random injuries within games. They've had players not show up, not do what they're supposed to. James Harden is doing his best to try to put the team on his back, but he just doesn't have the kind of support that he needs. And you flip that on to Atlanta, and basically they've done nothing. I mean, they've had to play an all-around team game because they don't have that uber superstar on their team. But they did it all season. They were the number one seed in the Eastern Conference, which you can say with Cleveland not playing up to their standards, that perhaps that was easier to do. But still, you figure Atlanta could win a game. And now maybe they'll win game 4 and then Cleveland takes it in 5 or something like that. But Atlanta just really hasn't shown up at all. And that's been extremely disappointing. They've done their best to kind of battle back within games, but within a series, you've got to find a way to win. I mean, Kyrie Irving either hasn't played or has been injured, so he hasn't been the Kyrie Irving of the Cleveland Cavaliers that they've all come to expect. Kevin Love is hurt. J.R. Smith is all of a sudden an offensive force for Cleveland. But if you're Atlanta, I mean, you've got two of the quote-unquote big three either not playing or not playing well, and you still can't beat them? I mean, LeBron James is LeBron James, but you still should be able to steal at least a game. I mean, that's what's been disappointing. You flip that onto the NHL, and it seems like every series is back and forth. Nobody has been able to take a commanding lead. Both Tampa Bay and Anaheim had a chance to go up 3-1 in that series and really put the hammer down. And instead, they let them tie up the series. Now, Tampa Bay had an excellent game in their last one. They were up in that series 3-2. And it's interesting to see what the media reaction is, because Henrik Lundqvist is talking about we're not going down without a fight and everything, and they're almost playing it out like that series is over. That series is not over. The New York Rangers have shown that they're capable of putting a lot of goals past Ben Bishop. So that series is really far from over, despite the fact that Tampa Bay has a chance to close it out in their next game. Now, Chicago and Anaheim, once again, they had a chance to put the boot on the throat of the Chicago Blackhawks. Instead, Chicago gets a thrilling double overtime victory in their last game. And now, all of a sudden, Chicago can potentially get that swing game going in their favor. It's going to be an interesting one to really see how that one turns out. I still go with my prediction. I still think that we're going to see a Tampa Bay versus Anaheim finals. But I would not be surprised, even with Tampa Bay up, I would not be surprised to end up seeing Chicago versus New York. One last little note here before we sign off for the day. An often not talked about topic on this show, as I mentioned, is Major League Baseball. Two area teams that have done extremely well and done it in different ways. really, the way they're both playing, I would not be completely surprised. I'm not predicting that this will happen, but I would not be surprised to see an I-70 series in the World Series. I honestly think the more I've seen of them, I think Kansas City really is the real deal. Last year was not a fluke, and a lot of people don't give them the credit that they deserve because they do it with relief pitching. Their starting pitching is not all that great, and it doesn't go all that deep into games, but their relief pitching is outstanding. And they do it with speed. They don't hit a lot of home runs. They're not going to wow you with power, but they do it with speed and defense because their speed leads to defensive outs. And you juxtapose that with the team across the state right here in St. Louis. St. Louis is still kind of a power team. They don't hit a ton of home runs. They're not going to lead the league in home runs, but they still hit with more power than the Kansas City Royals. But they're doing it with starting pitching despite the fact that they don't have their ace. That's what's been so impressive about this season so far, is Michael Wacha has really stepped it up. He's unbeaten right now. I believe he's 7-0, so he's had an excellent start to the season. The Cardinals are getting production from their bench here in the early part of the year. That's been able to give them some rest, where Matt Holliday was able to just DH in the series against Kansas City and let some other people play in the outfield. The one disappointing thing is Jason Hayward really hasn't found his groove here with the St. Louis Cardinals, but still plenty of time for him to really turn that around. But it would be really great to see another I-70 World Series. But it's really good to see both baseball teams really putting themselves towards the top of the league, regardless of the fact that it comes in different ways. The one thing that scares me about the Cardinals, and they have been this way for a few years, but it really reminds me of that team several years ago when Carlos Beltran was on the team. I don't know the statistics officially, but the Cardinals are up towards the top of the league still in runs scored. They did that with Carlos Beltran on the team, led the league in runs. But it was feast or famine to the point where they would literally win 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 to nothing, 12 to 1, whatever. But then they would lose 5 to nothing. You either score a boatload of runs or you score none. And the St. Louis Cardinals did that over the weekend, got shut out a couple times against the Kansas City Royals. Then they turned around and scored a bunch of runs when they won the game. You can't have that. You have to find a way to sprinkle the runs in throughout and really give your pitchers an opportunity to win every single game. The Cardinals had the best record in the majors for quite a while. I believe they've kind of fallen back towards the pack a little bit in the past week or so. But they could really be running away with the National League right now if they would consistently score runs, because they're often getting good pitching performances but not giving them the run support all the time. That'll do it for today's View from the Midwest. What are your views on the topics that we talked about today? If you're watching on YouTube, comment, rate, and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. If you're watching on Facebook, share it around with your friends. But until the next time, that is the View from the Midwest, and I will see you next time.
I remember when I lost my mind. There was something so pleasant about that place. Even your emotions have an echo, and so much